Alright, welcome back to the Road to Better Chess, where we try to focus on improvement over rating, playing in Zen mode so we can't see our rating or our opponents. Alright, we've got the black pieces. We play against e4, we've got to play c5 into a Sicilian. This is quite fortunate. I actually just watched a very interesting video from Hanging Pawns about his kind of suggested repertoire against the Sicilian overall. Let's see. This is the Alapin. I like playing d5 here. I think knight f6 is also a move, and then you kind of get into this structure, which is a little bit like an Alapin. Instead, they push past, and now I think we're just going to get an improved French, basically. We can put our light bishop out, and then we can close up shop, and we just have kind of a fine position. We can trade off the bishop for a knight if we want to. There's really not like much in between here. We could wait. We can play our knight up to c6 first, and then if they push, we can take, and they can take again, and then we can play out our light bishop. But I like the light bishop immediately. The other thing that's interesting about this is that we can actually take the knight there. And then with this structure where we have all pawns on light squares, it's just kind of a good structure for us. A little after game chess. Today was quite nice. I have a little bit of off time, so I enjoyed going back. Basically like once a week nowadays. Alright, d4, so we are basically now, we can play into a French, a really nice one. There's no reason we have to take here. We got the pawn defended with our dark square bishop. Actually, if we take it, might be slightly less good for us because on this we open up the c3 square for their knight. So there is also, again, this idea of taking the knight first before you take the pawn so that they just don't have this natural square. But there's no real reason to run at this right now. I remember from my time playing the French that there are ideas like this even, letting them take the knight and then playing your dark square bishop up on the long diagonal. I don't really know if I want to go through all of that planning right now. I think I'm just going to put out my knight over here. This does allow them to pin it with the light square bishop, but given that they've got this pawn structure, I would be very happy for them to lose their light square bishop. There's even a line where if they put their bishop out, for instance, I play queen b6. Oh, okay, hello, queen b6. And when they take, I take back with my pawn, and I just have, you know, double breaks. I can take once, and I can push and take again and get my dark square bishop out very comfortably. There is a little trick here where if I take their knight, well, no, that doesn't really work. The idea would be like take the knight, and then if they take it back and I take this pawn and take with their pawn, then I can fork the bishop and the king. But they can take my knight first, in which case that idea doesn't really work. They can also take back with their knight here, and then I would have to defend. Still pretty good though. I wouldn't say that's specifically bad for me. So maybe I do lose a little bit of time, but you know, it doesn't really matter. I could defend the knight as well if I don't want to take back with the b pawn, but I'm actually really comfortable to do that. Should we maybe just take here? Because you know, worst case they take, I take back. I'm still very comfortable with the position. I can break with my c pawn, and they don't really have anything else there. They can bring their queen out, which is a little bit, you know, not so nice. But I could defend my knight, you know, enough times they can't actually get at it, and I would be able to bring out. Nah. Now, let me just have a look here quickly. I'm just wondering about this queen move putting extra pressure, if that kind of spoils the party for me a little bit. Take the knight, say they take back, I take with the pawn, they take there. So I'm going to take once, they take back again. then there's nothing really to fork anymore. The bishop comes out. There's nothing that I'm attacking here. If I do this, the other thing that I get, which is kind of nice, is I can jump my knight out to f5, which is a nice square for it to hit that pawn as well on d4. Whereas here I have to play a... It's actually not a bad position as such, but it's not something I would specifically want to play. So I think I'm actually going to go for this idea. Do I take the knight first, or do I take the pawn first? Or do I play my queen out? If I play my queen out, they're taking, right? So that kind of spoils the plan anyway. If I take the pawn once, they take, then I take the knight. None of this is really bad as such, it's just whether or not I specifically care. I'm gonna play this plan. I kind of like it. This light square bishop obviously was quite strong, so if they now decide to bring their own light square bishop back, you know, uncontested over here, could be kind of strong, but I don't think I'd have any immediate problems. Alright, and now I'm going to take here. And at any time they take, I take back with my b pawn. I'm still fairly comfortable. Actually, this a pawn might hang as well now in this case, even if they take. A pawn would be available, although the rook would be protected. So I would probably have to speed up my own development as well. I'm actually going to go behind in development because I'm, you know, attacking a little bit and so on. Taking this pawn, but winning the a pawn isn't really winning as such, so probably doesn't matter too much. If they take back with the knight or something, instead of just bringing my queen out, very comfortable. Knight is protected. They can bring out again. I still have enough protecting it. Oh, they do actually. Okay. Yeah, so if I had a light square bishop, I would play that here, and then I could actually do this kind of trick, but I currently can't. So it's either queen up or it's knight over. I think it's queen up though. Queen up, I think, is the way to go here. And then the knight will come out. I also just have a3 kind of forcing the issue a little bit. Yeah, here comes the queen. I don't want to play a up here now. I want to protect the knight one more time. And I don't think anything's hanging, because I have sufficient protectors everywhere. I could also bring my other knight out first, but maybe over first and then push, because taking just really doesn't do anything. If I push now, they take once and I take back. Yeah, it's just too many attackers. So I think rook over. Just defending my knight another time. Now I can still play a6. So white has kind of spoiled my fancy plans here. But I don't think it's actually given them much either. I think a move like this would be pretty good here. Getting behind the knight. So if they take, you know, my queen's hit as well and I can't take back, so I would have to take here. And then if they take, I would still take, yeah, I would still take with the pawn, so that's okay. But maybe the situation is getting a bit tricky. The other idea is just to walk out my queen now, and if they take, I just take the queen. Oh, but hang on, my queen's hanging, that's very silly. Alright, maybe I've overplayed my hand a little bit here. I can go back here, I'm losing a pawn, it's not the end of the world. I could protect here, they take, I take back, they take, I take back. I'm going to lose that pawn potentially, but this, okay, not really, maybe not. So if I go up first, if they take the knight, this is the kind of the move, right? Take the knight. I have to take back because if they move, then it's check. So take back first, and My queen is protecting everything this way. The only thing here that's really bad for me is after they play a move like this. I might have to take once and then just move my queen out of the way and lose this pawn, unfortunately. Isn't really many other moves for me to play here, so I think I kind of have to. I could get out of the way immediately, and though if they take here, I can take here, messing up the pawns a little bit. Although I kind of like this idea, even if I have to trade it off, just to allow me to get my king to safety. So I think we're going to go ahead with this. But now I've probably played my opening a little bit too fancy. So we'll see. We'll see if white can punish me for that. Yeah, I think b4 is the move here that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I kind of have to trade off, and I'm just going to lose the a-pawn, which isn't the end of the world. Being down an a-pawn doesn't really win or lose the game just yet. But I guess going back, maybe just queen b6 directly was a little bit more solid. Trying to get the light square bishop, the bishop here from white. Okay, I'm expecting b4 here. If it's not b4, actually, I think, yeah, it's b4. And I think I have to take, I don't think there's much to it. I have to take and I have to get out of the way. I'm going to stay on the c file, protecting this knight, also hitting here. And now my a-pawn is going to drop. I'm going to develop hitting that bishop. I'm going to castle out of the way. And we're going to have a game. If that bishop moves, obviously this e-pawn hangs, which could be very good for us. If we move our king out of the way, not even castle, and we take, we'll be able to check the king. Yeah, this is pretty good for them. But I think no reason not to just play the knight up and get our king to safety. I think that's okay. If they take, I mean, I'm going to take back with my knight, I guess. I don't want to trade queens here. I mean, it's a fine position, but I don't think I would specifically want to play just a pawn down without queens. That seems a little bit silly. So I would take here, hitting both of these, castle out of the way, and then actually I'm double attacking the f-pawn. And if they try to protect it, I take the bishop and I check the king and take the pawn, and actually their position is becoming very dangerous. So thinking maybe for them just castling is good here. Oh wow, okay. Trying to force the situation. You only got 2 attackers on my knight though, so I can move out of the way. And if you take, I can take back. Yeah, I don't think this is really a move I want to play. It does unpin technically, but it feels a little bit silly, so I think over here is probably better. The one thing though, if I hear and they come in with their knight, and I castle, although I guess they're both protecting each other, so it's kind of okay, whichever one they take. And also I would have this. Actually, this looks pretty good, actually. Yeah, and if I win this pawn, I wouldn't mind trading queens, because at that point, actually, this structure isn't that scary anymore. I can play my knight up as well. No, but I need to move my queen first. Here, oopsie, here. Oh my, here is what I was saying. This just unfortunately, I don't think stepping into this pin is really great. So I think stepping out of it is better. But if they make a mistake and move the bishop, I'm going to pick up this e-pawn first. And then I can always come back and trade. I can always just come back here. I can also take here depending on what they do with their king. Although I'm guessing the king's going to move over there somewhere. Yeah, here they come. Okay, so I think this is a good pawn for me to grab. They can put the bishop there, but actually get another pawn, which would be really good for me. They can bring their light square bishop back. Then oh, hello. King up. Very unexpected. Okay. I mean, I can just castle here. I can also try and win the G pawn, but that's crazy because then they're just coming down on me. So I think at this point I'm going to say thank you very much and castle. And after they move their king out of their queen out of the way, I mean, I can check him once, but it doesn't really matter. They're going to attack me. I'm actually happy to lose the B pawn here. If I castle and they take the B pawn, it's very dangerous. Then I can hit the queen. It has to go somewhere. It'll only have this square to go to. Then I can hit it again and I can pick up this, or I might even be able to trap it. Alright, so thank you very much. Of course, if they take here, I have to take back with my knight, so that spoils the party a tiny bit. Although, once they take here, I can actually put in another check first, which could be interesting. Might be worth considering. Just not here, because I hang my queen. Yeah, so that might be a check to consider in that case, if the bishop takes. Because if they stick on the second rank, for instance, I might have this pawn if it's weak. Or something. I could even do something like this, and then I could take here. Oh, okay, they go the other way, huh? This does allow me to fix my pawn structure, though, so... Oh, no, not really, because they're going to take my knight. Yeah, fair enough. Although, if I take here, I attack the queen. And... after that... Yeah, but I don't want to, do I? This is an interesting situation. Alright, so I've got 3 ways to take back. The knight is hanging against the rook. If I take with my rook, they take the pawn. Then I can take their bishop as well. Then I can check the king. Oh, that's very interesting. I've got this move as well to hit the queen. I might actually... This sacking the exchange looks very fun. I don't know if I'm at all winning or losing there, but it looks very, very interesting. I could also sack the exchange this way and keep my rook. Or I could do this and just sack the rook completely. This might actually be worth it. I'm doubling up against that. So if they take, I'm there. I'm actually really liking this. So if you take, I'm in. And now, I mean, I can sack, but I don't know if that's really worth it. So I think I'm just coming over here. Now they can take my rook with their queen. Now I have to be very careful about how I attack. They're going to take with the pawn. Check, check. Oh wow, okay. So take here. Okay, I'm opening up a lot of dangerous lines here, but we're going to try and find a way to win. So hitting this, if they move back, I can fork them against their own rook. If they come forward, I can make some plans here. They want to get onto this line because I can again get at you, and then my rook also plays, which could be very dangerous. Although my king is also very, very weak, so I've got to be careful. Would you sack a whole rook to open up your opponent's king with a dubious attack? Alright, coming forward. So I've got multiple ways to check. This is obviously the strongest one because it forces. Let's just see if there's anything else I might want to consider. There's also this, which allows them to walk a little bit forward. Oh, if they walk there, it's mate actually. That'd be very funny. If they go here, I can still push them back. We might actually be in a little bit of a zugzwangy kind of situation. Hmm. Alright, I mean I think I have to keep on checking. I have one chance to take here first before I start checking again, but they've got to get their rook out, I think is kind of a fail, so I think I'm gonna check down here first. And they've got a few moves, but now I can take that pawn with check. Although this is obviously also pretty dangerous for me. Hmm. Trying to push the king into a position where I can cause some damage. Oh, 1 second. Taking that pawn doesn't specifically help me. I'm just trying to see where I can make them move that might be worthwhile, you know? If I take and they move back, I actually don't have any more checks. But then I can threaten their... Oopsie daisy. 1 second. All right, apologies for going a little bit AFK and quiet there at the end of that game. My wife just phoned with our baby, and I needed to just say hello quickly. They are staying away for a night or two. But let's have a look at the game. This was certainly not my best. I would say I clearly misplayed it out of the opening, but we were able to create some complications which our opponent did not get through properly, and it actually looked there at the end like it was either going to have to be a perpetual or they were going to have to walk into a disadvantageous position. which they did do in the end, walking into mate. So let's just go back to the story. So this was actually looking like an Alapin. E5 is not the main move. The main move here is working for d3. So what people normally d4. So what people normally do is they take. I take with the queen, d4, and then after knight f3, there's kind of like there's knight c6, and there's two bishop moves, bishop g4 and bishop f5. F5 is some interesting lines which I've learned, but actually today I watched a really interesting video. I think I said it at the start. Hanging Pawns had a video about like a easy full repertoire kind of for black in the Sicilian, and he plays g4, and those lines perfectly fine as well. A little bit more kind of standard. The bishop f5 lines, black often ends up castling long and just putting so much pressure on the center because white often gets an IQP in the Alapin. But yeah, so they push past, and now I just have a situation where I can get my light square bishop out before closing up the pawn chain, which is just good for black. It's not winning, but you've just solved your only real problem in this pawn structure. So putting out your light square bishop and then just playing e6 it's really comfortable. So they play, and now we're actually going to play an advanced French, but we have the light square bishop out, so the French bishop is not a problem. If I was playing a little bit more cautiously, I might have considered playing something like h6 instead and sinking the bishop into the cubby and just keeping it alive, kind of forcing my opponent to maybe try and trade their light square bishop for it. But yeah, I mean, this turned out perfectly fine at the start. E6, knight f3, knight c6, perfectly good. We're very happy with the structure. If they take back, we take with our bishop. And as they did take in the game eventually, if you don't take back with a pawn here, your e-pawn becomes weak, and you actually saw me be able to grab that pawn, although it was still a bit of a dicey situation, but being able to grab the e-pawn can be quite strong. It can also be double-edged though. There are some lines where white actually lets black grab it, and then after they've castled, they just have a rook out and they start sacking on the pawn chain in the middle, and your king hasn't castled, so you're actually in a lot of trouble. So you got to be careful with these things, which I think we weren't really. So apologies, this was a little bit of a messy game. It's not really the way I want this series to go, but I was enjoying the ideas I was seeing. But our opponent found some good in-between moves instead as well. So here I think probably what I should have played is just queen b6, and then they take, and I would take back with my pawn, and I would just have two breaks here. So I could still, after queen b6, consider taking that knight first if they don't jump the knight out somewhere. Or I could just take the pawn and just immediately play c5 again, and if they take again, I develop my dark bishop. I'm putting a lot of pressure on the f pawn, and they have this e pawn, but they have no d pawn, which means that they have slightly less control, and this e pawn is slightly weaker. But anyway, so I decided to grab that knight, kind of playing for tricks a little bit, although I thought that the complications would work out kind of comfortably, even if not. And here I think they realized the problem they can't take, because I would fork the light square bishop. They had the option of just taking my knight immediately, and then after that taking back with the pawn as well. That would have been perfectly fine, but I would still get my c5 break in. So actually the pawn structure would still kind of work out the way I wanted it to. So yeah, they decided to take with the knight, and here I have to be careful. I think I mentioned this in the game. If you have a light square bishop in these scenarios, a nice pattern to remember is one where you put your bishop. So for instance, I play bishop d7 here, and they castle. This actually hangs the e-pawn, because I can take the pawn, and after they take my bishop, I can take back with the knight. In a case like, for instance, they had knight f3 here. So I could take here, threatening the knight, threatening the bishop. And if they take my bishop first, I take back with my knight, and I actually just win a pawn, because my knight has a nice little pattern where it takes back and thus gets out of danger itself. That said, in this position, I don't have a light square bishop, so I decided I would just bring out my queen. And then white found, I think, the best continuation here, which is queen up. And in this situation, I wonder if the engine would say playing knight e6, e7 is best, or even maybe king d7, just walking the king up to defend, so that whatever else happens, I don't have to worry about the pawn hanging here. What you don't want to do is you don't want to play a6 here, right? Because they can take, and then you have to take, but then they take your rook, right? So they take, then you take, and there's still two attackers. So you have to defend the knight in some way. So yeah, we'll look at the ancient lines a little bit here. What I didn't like about this was because my Darkstar bishop can't get out. So, and they would still have their Darkstar bishop potentially putting some pressure um, on knight, and I can't play f6 because they would be able to take the e-pawn here as well, so my whole structure would come apart. So it's really only maybe king up, which seems a little bit crazy, but might be called for given how I've played it, or like I did, rook c8, and just kind of saying I'm probably going to lose a pawn here. So yeah, in this situation now, I can't defend my a pawn anymore. My knight can't move to like trade off queens. Even if I play bishop up, they found b4, which I think was the best move, and I have to trade. I can't go back because then I just lose pieces and I'm completely lost. So I take and then I fall back and they take my pawn, and this is not great, but it's still okay. We're down a pawn. They have the bishop pair. It's clearly good for them, but it's not impossible to win this. Um, so yeah, knight out, protecting the other knight. They offer us a queen trade. What I didn't like about this situation of putting our queen here, I just didn't think that we want our knight pinned against our queen after our king castles. We want to have the knight free to be able to do something. So I decided to play the queen back to b8. And here they find a good move, or at least it seems good, although probably in hindsight, if I played less aggressive, it would have turned out better for us. So I took and castled here and castled, but probably the option here was to just then walk in, and then if they take my queen, I can take back, and everything's defended sufficiently. I don't even have to castle anymore because queens are off, so I would actually also move my king up. Uh, but in that situation, my kind of mid control isn't that useful, and I've got two knights versus two bishops, and they are going to be pressing their queen side advantage to create a passer. So yeah, I think I would never choose the situation if I could avoid it, and I could have avoided it by playing better. So I castle, and here they find a good move. Again, I'm still lost. I think I'm still doing kind of poorly here. The only point is that once this dark square bishop moves, then I have checks. So as long as this dark square bishop stays where it is, I'm actually doing quite poorly, but once it moves, I think I'm doing better. And here I had options. I could go here, and then they take, and then, I can start doing my checks and stuff. But, my break would be too slow. Although, what I could maybe do is I could start pushing the queen around, although they would just come here, and then I'd be screwed again. Yeah, and this bishop would also be blocking this. So yeah, I don't think I like that. So the other option is just to give up the exchange directly and also give up the b-pawn and also maybe my rook. So if they take here, then this whole structure is collapsing. And my knight can't jump like to give a check or something. So I think probably best move given the situation, but I've clearly misplayed my position. So I take with the rook and then bring the other rook. So I take with the rook. I probably didn't have to bring the other rook, right? I could have actually just taken here, threatening that, and once they take back, I could have jumped. And then I'd be down in exchange, but I would have the active queen, and I would have a knight, and the king is clearly misplaced in their position. So maybe instead of what I did, which felt strong, but turned out to be kind of trash, because they can take with the queen, which I overlooked. If they take with the bishop here, I'm doing great. I think I might just be crushing completely. They have to run back. I can check them on both sides here again. They have to come up. I can bring another rook in. My queen can come back and check again on this light squares. Their queen is completely out. I think I'll be completely crushing. But they have a queen take. So take with the queen. Yeah, so actually this was probably a continuation, looking at it again, which I might have considered, because having their king out of the way is what gives me a chance here. So if they don't move their king out of the way, what they probably could have done is they could have given up some pressure, with one of the bishops coming back. or they could have gone to f1, which I think might have actually been the better move, because there's no checks on f1. I can't check them. All I can do is I can kind of come back and say, cool, fair enough. I'm gonna have to, I don't know, trade some stuff, and then we'll see what the position looks like. Because if I win this pawn, I still lose kind of on the back end here. It's not a good situation. I don't think. Let me see. If you go here, and I would take the pawn here. Yeah, because this knight is pinned, so I'd have to take with my king, and then here. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely not. Yeah, so I think actually white was perfectly fine if they just played king f1. King f1, by the way, a pretty standard move in many lines of other openings where white plays aggressively and gets an advantage but allows a check. It's very often the right move to just move the king over to f1. So our opponent tried to be active and come out to d2, but I think this is actually where they go wrong. So we castle, and now the position gets a little bit dicey. We take, cool, and they take with the queen, which I didn't see coming. That was very unfortunate. But I have to get this dark square bishop off because this is also not a check. So take it, and here, yeah, I mean here you can do some stuff, but you have to keep on being careful because now I can check you, and I can eventually maybe win a rook in a corner if you're not careful. Here I actually get a pawn, so I'm opening up the position against you. Here I can win a pawn again. And I don't know, you saw here, I was actually, while I wasn't talking again, I was just mentioning this square here. If they come here, actually it's mate. It would be the amazing pattern where the king doesn't have diagonal retreat squares, and then you put a queen in front of it. So they have to go back, but it actually is just, I think the position is just getting worse for them. Probably they had a draw, but now they might just be losing because I can force the king around. They'd have to go out. Maybe in this position they can still just kind of draw, and I would just go back and forth. Although if they go here and I go up and they go up again and I go here, yeah, that's also dangerous because they can't go to the back rank because the rooks don't make it. So I was really scared that they run back to the a1 square, which is why eventually I checked with my rook and not with my queen. Let's just have a look quickly. If they go back, check here. Let's say I try to check this way and they go sideways. Yeah, I just don't have enough, hey? And my king is very weak. In that position, I can't stop them from getting to a1, and I think at that point I've got nothing. So actually I would have had to just keep on doing this because I can't let the king run to b2. Then I think white is winning again. Alright, so they went to b3, fantastic, and this looked very, very, exciting. But once again, if the king goes back there, they can run away maybe. If I go here, they can also just go back, and we're just in the same position. So I actually move my rook first, and they can't run away. They have to go to one of these squares, and both is mate. So it doesn't matter where you go. Next one, we've got kind of like a ladder mate, because I've got the one file covered, and I come in with the mate on the backwards file. Alright, let's have a look at the actual analysis here quickly. I obviously enjoyed the win, but it's a little bit silly. I see we actually played against a slightly lower rated opponent as well. This might explain how they unfortunately went wrong. Yeah, you can see it was actually all draws. Let's just look at the theory a little bit here quickly. So e5 not the best move. Yeah, actually on the master level scores very well for black. You just knight c6, bishop f5, both good. Knight c6 first, hitting the pawn. Alright, let's say d4, and then you bring out your bishop. Okay. So if they take here, you can still close up and hit it, and if they do this, actually, you're just slowly taking them apart. You win the e-pawn as well. So they would continue defending it, e6, and this transposes to our position. Bishop e5, not a good move at the master level. Queen b6 immediately. Takes with the pawn or the queen. Yeah, okay, I would have taken with the pawn. But yeah, okay, so e5 is a move. I expected this. This is the main line I know. And then we have choices with our light square bishop. We might bring out a knight, we might play e6 or e5, we might castle long. It's a lot of fun. Alapin can be very fun for black, actually. Okay, so yeah, so we get up, and then they play d4, knight c6 or e6. Okay, knight c6 just seems to be a better move here. I think the point being that you put pressure on the e-pawn, because if they end up taking and they drop the e-pawn, they actually have no pawns in the center, which is kind of dangerous. But anyway, we go up and we transpose. F4 would have been an interesting situation as well. This is a pattern that you do see um, in the French sometimes. I used to play the French, so I do remember seeing people in the advanced just eventually launching their kingside pawns. Alright, so we're transposing a bit here, back into kind of a bit more of a mainline situation. So it still says the Alapin because of how we got here, but it's clearly a French structure, right? We just have the light square bishop out. Bishop e2, bishop e5, yeah, I said is good for us. And no one's played this move on the master level. And some people have played it at the top Lichess level, which I say is 2000 or up, classical and rapid only. So we'll quickly look at what those games look like, but I don't think it's worth learning the line. I wouldn't say it's especially good. Taking the pawn first, the queen b. Yeah, so everyone here is kind of playing for the trick. Here's some people who seem to fall for it actually. Queen a5, yeah, just crashing 85%. Doesn't matter, I'm winning your bishop, so that's silly. Taking with the knight though is still pretty good. Okay, and here instead of queen b5, queen b6, knight e7, defending the knight. I think for knight e7 you have to play a6 as well, because you have to budge the. Let's just say they do this. You have to budge the bishop. Oh, a6 is not the best move here, apparently, according to the results at least. Very interesting. Okay, and also they do have this idea of putting the bishop behind, and you can't play f6. It's an unfortunate situation, so you have to move your queen. Yeah, rook c8 is also an option. Queen a4, yeah. The situation might transpose a tiny bit. Queen b6. This is transposing to our game basically. All right, so let's see. Queen b6 directly, not best move. Knight e7 best. Rook c8. Rook c8's okay. Okay. The problem here is what? Oh, I think the problem is that we might not choose to put our queen over there. Let's just say this happens. Isn't this just transposing straight into what we had? What am I missing? This is the same position. Alright, oh yeah, it is basically the same position, fair enough. b4, I do think best move, I do think we have to take, and we have to drop back and drop the pawn. We're still actually in top level theory, well, in top Lichess theory, 3 games, all results possible apparently. Knight e, you have to, and then castle, queen b6, and bishop b6. Bishop b6 is a trash move because you're dropping your pawn. Castling is okay, I guess. I would definitely castle for sure. a4. This is kind of what oh, hang on, but the queen's hanging. Okay, never mind. That's silly. So after this, you have to move the queen somewhere. Okay. Oh, hang on. Let's look at this quickly. Where's that line we just looked at? Castle, castle, a4. No, that's not. Queen c5, knight x, cx. Yeah, and then queen out of the way. You don't want to take again because you're just solidifying their position. Alright, taking was best. We didn't want to take, but apparently that's the way we should have played. Just be +1 down a pawn. Right, and they really should have castled. They didn't though. So they drop the pawn, and now it's equal. Yeah, king of 1 was the move. And we castle, and they take, and this is actually still pretty good. Okay, so instead of this whole story, we just had to check immediately. And after this, okay, after this we either defend the knight, or we start attacking, and after that we also defend the rook, and then we can jump here. Okay, so this is actually good for us. So we actually had a chance to improve this position. I thought this position looks kind of trash, but I guess it's actually pretty good. Doesn't really matter where you go. I'm going to put you in a world of pain. So if you go here, for instance, I think I'm just going to check and go around. Check you again. If you go back, I'm actually going to start coming at you. If you go back here, I can bring my rook in as well. And I can hit your bishop. If you move your bishop somewhere, I don't know. Then I'm just going to do this. Yeah, yeah. All right. All right, cool. So we actually had a better situation than Rook FC8. I feel bad about that because I actually did consider playing it and I just didn't. We also had just Rook back to C7, defending the knight. Okay, this was poor play by us. I'm not very happy with the way we played here. Yeah, okay, now we're worse. Actually, sacking was apparently worse. Um, okay, just walking back was the problem. But this could also still transpose. Yeah, and it's difficult to get the, although I like this. Okay, now we're still in this position. I can't check here. Yeah, that's a dangerous situation. Okay, yeah, so king d2 is now just a draw, and they just had to keep on running around. This would be really fun, but it didn't happen. Alright, yeah, and they just had to go back. Unfortunately, they didn't, and we have a mate in 3. Very nice to see. Cutting off, and there we go. Alright, so I wouldn't say they play the way that we played here. Always know that if you can get your Lightsky bishop out and close up the structure, just having a French without any problems is definitely a situation worth playing with black. I also would say, personally, we made it kind of dicey and so forth, but here, in this position, we should have realized that the check here isn't that bad because we would be able to threaten some stuff that's very dangerous. I just looked at it and I saw that they would hit, and I was scared that if I moved the queen without a concrete plan, I'm actually just not going to get anywhere. Let's, like, for instance, let's say here, 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 and they defend. Oh, I guess I have a check there as well. I'm actually just completely crushing. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, we'd still be able to come back. Interesting times. I could also maybe just like hit the bishop. Happy to take it, screw up your pawn structure, then take, and I've got a rook and a queen on you. All right, so yeah, I wouldn't say play as I did. I would say play as I say on that one. But it's good to be in a position where we have to think fast and try and create some complications. And you can see how easily you can go wrong with a really, really strong advantage like white had if you start putting your king into the game too early. So yeah, stick around, keep on improving. See you again next time. Ciao, ciao.